Sometimes you just start out on the back foot. Can't help it. Could be for all kinds of reasons. Maybe you just started too late. Maybe you went down the wrong path at the start. Maybe you just caught a bad break. Success breeds success. In the greatest fighters, you'll find the best training partners. The best drivers often find their way to a team with a history of success. And in Siege, the best players come from one of the big three regions. Just how it's always been. If you're from Apac, you're supposed to go out in groups. If you're lucky, maybe you make it to playoffs. But at the end of the day, no one has ever picked one of these teams to reach the pinnacle of the sport. There have been teams, though. Teams that have showed sparks of brilliance. Fabian helped lead PSG Talon to a level of success we never thought possible, and he's only getting started. But before them, there were hopefuls like Bliss showing up to play recently. There was Damwon, who took one of the best we have to the brink in their game with FaZe. But before all of them was a team draped in black and orange stunning the world. Today I'm bringing you the story of a man who was a part of establishing an entire region, showing up to tell the world that there were winners everywhere around the world. He hasn't always been the loudest player, he hasn't always been the flashiest, and it's been a while since you've seen him in front of a crowd. But make no mistake, he's a crucial part of both Siege's history and its future. This is MentalistC.
With Mentalist, Magnet, Tex, Virtue, Lusty, and Dizzle.
Trying to find some safe space, but the issue is now is that Rafal's working his way in from behind. They got a ping downstairs. Mentalist gets one with the TCS G12. A little bit of your own medication there, BDS, as they're trying to put this diffuser down inside of Projector. Started up, but Mentalist shuts one down inside of Long. Renshiro has Overwatch for the time being, but that's going to be into the post plant. A little bit of damage, but he gets outside anyway. So Lem's going to stay inside, down to the 2 versus 2. They're going to need some information here, but there's no information inside, so it's all down to the face peaks. Alems tells Renshiro to abandon ship. Alems hops down a hatch and gets a free kill. All of a sudden it's Mentalist to try and clutch this up. He knows that the other one has vacated the premises. They're trying to get a drone inside, but he's already on it. Is it going to be enough? He can't get the angle, and Mentalist gets a free one. Look at his face. What are you doing? What are you doing?
And that now leaves Mentalist in a 1 versus 4. 1 versus 3 as he takes Shepard off the board and gets the diffuser down. This could be a potential clutch for Mentalist here. He has the diffuser beneath his feet. He can keep himself safe behind the reinforcement. 10 seconds to go. Empire have to push here. He knows that.
No
That's
way.
another kill. 1v2,
No.
1v1, and the clutch comes in from Mentalist. 1v4. He played it perfectly. That is an unbelievable play from the Apac team.
To start with, as always, we take a look back at what he was playing before Siege.
I think when I first was really young, I was playing like PlayStation games, just racing games and whatnot. But then the first time I got a PC was when I moved to Singapore when I was 10 years old. When I was 12 or 13, but I was playing like those knockoff Counter-Strike games. Like I think Crossfire was called, and then after that, I kind of moved on to Team Fortress 2 and Counter-Strike with some of my friends that I made in school. And yeah, then after those, I kind of took those games semi-seriously, especially Counter-Strike. I kind of like grinded rank in that game, and that was the start of it when I was like 14 or 15. And that's when like Siege popped up, I guess. And like, yeah, I bought that game, started playing, and never looked back.
So how do you go from playing a new game to competing in it?
It was a really lucky break, actually. So even way before competitive Siege was even a thing, like on the first year of Siege, I was already playing it, and then just in one casual game, this guy just asked me, "Yo, you want to join a team?" And then you're from Singapore, right? You want to join a team? And I was like, "Oh, okay, sure." And I had no idea what I was getting into, and then I joined that team, and then like a week later, that team disbanded, and one of the members on that team, his name was Revek. He really liked me, and then he brought me to another team that he was running, and that team ended up being Team Envy, which was the first Asia team to ever compete in the first ever invitational. And from there, I was just kind of like, I was like on the edge. I was at 14 or 15 or something, so they just kept me in the back burner because they needed a sub. one of the players was like doing something called national service in Singapore, which was pretty much mandatory military service, which means that like he couldn't play 1 week out of the 2. So I had to sub in pretty much semi-consistently. As a result of that, I gained a lot of experience, and they kept me around for all those many years, like 3 years, up until I became of age. And when I came of age, I just joined the main roster immediately.
Many pros, especially in the early days of Siege, would lack representation in the beginning of their careers, even when they got to Tier 1, but Mentalist found himself heading straight to Pro League under the Aerowolf banner. He gets the credit for finding an org to a teammate in Lunar Metal as he was busy just playing the game. For some, the jump into Pro League is huge. For others, it's Tuesday.
Honestly, to me, it wasn't that big of a jump because I never, like you said, I never really experienced like the lower tier competition. For me, even when I was just a sub, like I was consistently competing with some of the best team in Asia, and even had the opportunity to scrim against like overseas teams that were tier 1. So since I was like underage, I'm already really used to the stress and the intensity of like tier 1, tier 2 siege. So for me, going to my first season, it really wasn't that jarring of experience. It was just something that I was already like kind of familiar with.
Remember when I talked about Apac being on the back foot from the start? Well, there's reasons for that, and we talked about some of them.
Yeah, Asia has a lot of problems, like a lot of reasons why like it's weak, considered as weak as a region. Let's just start with the thing you pointed out. Like ping is a huge issue. Like before, the way to deal with it was like the Asia Pacific LAN. So Asia will be broken up into 4 sub-regions: Japan, Korea, Southeast Asia, and Australia. And the best 2 teams from those sub-regions would then travel to a LAN event in Australia to decide who's the top 2 and who's going to the major. And that was like maybe year 4, year 5, year 6 before like the APAC North and South thing became a thing. So that was actually the best solution by far. Like you can like compete with your local regions at everyone has decent ping, and then when you travel to LAN, obviously everyone has 0 ping. But then I'm not sure exactly what happened. Maybe it was like money. Maybe it was the fact that ESL stopped working for Siege, so they couldn't use the Australia ESL headquarters anymore. Maybe it was the fact that they wanted to move on to like a APAC North and South structure. But either way, it was scrapped, and now everyone has to play against each other at like really like from anywhere between 70 to like if you're from Australia like 150 ping. So like it's completely to be honest, it was pretty completely unplayable. If you're 150 ping and you're swinging against someone who has 9 ping, like you're just not 90% of the time you're just not gonna win it.
The team would then go on to make a trip to the Vegas Allied Minor where Mentalist would get his first shot at international competition, which he wasn't actually expecting to do.
That event, first of all, came as a surprise to us because we didn't think that we were gonna get invited. Before that event, I believe like we kept losing out in the semifinals of like major qualifiers, last chance qualifiers, stuff like that. So when we got invited, we felt pretty fortunate, and we were like, we had an internal talk about like what's the expectation going into the event. And for us, I think it was more of okay, let's just play our best, gather some experience, and see what it's like playing against was then the tier 1 teams of international leagues that we have not been able to practice against in a while. And for us, yeah, it was just a experience gaining process. And if we can win a game or 2, that would be incredible. And for us, most importantly, it was just to practice against as many teams as we can from the international region.
So it was a learning experience, which is true as they didn't win a game going 3 and out, but they had very close losses proving that at the very least they belonged at this level of play. They returned home much stronger, winning the next season of Pro League, but did their time in Vegas play a part in that?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said before, Asia region, the team's quality has always been low. So we don't really learn as much scrimming against our local teams compared to the international teams. So that experience definitely at least set the expectations of how good that we have to be, so that like even when we are playing against our local teams, we know that okay, this might not be enough. We still need to improve and see what we can do better, so that we can compete against those like international teams that we know how they're gonna play like.
With this newfound success and a regular season win, Aerowolf would head to Tokonami to show off just how much better they had gotten, and throughout the turmoil they faced, they would do well.
during that season and during the season before it, I feel like the team was finally getting together. Aerowolf as a team was running into a lot of uh, even after I joined, we were running into a lot of like roster issues. I think people have to leave and go, Array, Ravak, just to name a few. And even before I joined as well, like every year we would at least change one or two members. So after I joined, we finally, as a team, we finally experienced like a period of time where we didn't change members, and all of us liked each other, and all of us were talented players. So after the like first 6 months has passed, everyone just really got into our comfort zone, and I think the event itself at Tokonami, it was really when, like, as a team, we entered our flow state. Strategically speaking, we were pretty weak as a team. We didn't have a coach, we didn't have anyone. We were just a glorified rank stack with some strats playing together. But as people, like playing with each other, our chemistry was incredible, and the way we played with each other, off each other, was really, really good. And I think it showed at that event. Even though we ended up losing, I think, to DarkZero, we beat Giants, who we had lost to earlier on in the Allied Minor that year. So we've shown ourselves that we have improved a lot, and it was yeah, it was just a really incredible experience. I was really happy that we improved a lot in such a short amount of time.
So this is where it gets a little bit odd. Aerowolf had just pulled off a top 4 finish, proving that not only were they the best in Apac, but they were strong enough to compete with the rest of the world. Yet even with this success, Mentalist would leave Aerowolf for Fnatic.
Fnatic gave me the offer to join them before that season final, and it was during that season final that actually me and Aerowolf, we eliminated Fnatic from the event. So we were the one that made them not be able to qualify. So to me, in the back of my mind, I knew even if I lost as Aerowolf against Fnatic, I would have still went to the event because then Fnatic would have picked me up. Uh, Actually, no, I don't think that's true. Actually, I think so. Okay, for that event, if you qualified for Tokonami, you would have also qualified for the invite. You would qualify for 2 events at once. That was something unique for that year, I believe. So I knew, like, even if we lost to Fnatic, I would have still went to the Invitational because they had sent me the offer before. But to me personally, I was playing with the Earth boys for so long, for I think 3 to 5 years, maybe around 4 at the time. So to me, I really wanted to win, like, to finally make a tier 1 event with them and finally win. So I gave it my all, even against the team that I was going to join, and I was really glad that we won. And I think I even cried after we beat Fnatic, qualifying for the event. So yeah, it meant a lot for me, just to qualify to the event with my team, beating the team that was eventually going to join. Obviously, I couldn't tell my team members that I was going to join Fnatic because that would be messed up. Like, they would, in the back of my, even if they trust me, in the back of their minds, they would think, okay, what if he just throw against the team that he's going to join, you know? But yeah, I because of that, I was kind of guilty playing that game, but I'm glad I played really, really well that game, and we ended up beating them to qualify for the event.
You go from the best team in your region to playing under one of the biggest names in esports, and you'll be making your debut at the pinnacle siege at the 6th Invitational. That's a lot of weight to put on your shoulders.
So obviously there was expectations because Fnatic at the time was the APAC team to watch for, and to be invited to join them, and it obviously meant that a certain high amount of expectations will be placed on you. But for me, fortunately, I think I was young and stupid enough at the time to not care about all those things. So when I joined, I just kind of played, and it's kind of a blissful ignorance in a way where I didn't really let the stress get to me because I really didn't understand at the time, and I kind of just played my game. I think I was like 2019 at the time, during the Invitational, and the team's environment was pretty good because the core of them, just like me with Aero beforehand, has been playing with each other for like 3 or 4 years. So they integrated me really, really well into their environment, and I was able to play stress free for the event, and we ended up doing really well.
Fnatic came into 6th Invitational 2020 facing massive competition right from the start, with everyone in their group strong enough to win the event outright. So when it would come down to a rematch with Empire to send them to playoffs, the truth is that Fnatic wasn't supposed to win.
Okay, I think Empire was like the favorites going into that tournament. I think they were the finalists, if not winning the whole thing for the major before that. Yeah, could be wrong. But yeah, they made it really far the previous event. So for us, our first game against Empire, it was just like, okay, we're gonna play like maps that we're comfortable in and they're gonna be comfortable in, and let's just see what happens. Even if we lose, we're gonna play against the loser of, I think it was FaZe and DarkZero. We were much more comfortable with those two teams. So we were just, honestly, it was kind of a loser mentality, but we were already aiming for like the second game, and then we're gonna hopefully win our third game to get out of the groups. So the first game against Empire came and went. We played them on their strongest map. I think it was Coastline, even though we picked it, as well as Bank. Just to like gauge their strength, and I see how they play, and it kind of confirmed our suspicion that okay, they're gonna do the same thing over and over again, and they're not gonna really change much game to game. So coming into the second game against Empire after we have beaten FaZe, we kind of just looked at their performance, looked at the VODs on different maps, and we decided, okay, I think as a team we have the best chance against them on Cafe, and let's pick that map. And fortunately, after like the Empire won 8-6 or 8-7. It was by 1 or 2 rounds against us on Coastline, so they didn't feel comfortable playing us on that map again. So they ended up picking something else. Let me think. I think it was Clubhouse. At the time, also Empire is one of the strongest map. So we let Clubhouse and Cafe through because we think we have a good understanding of how they play on those two maps. So we purposely let it through, and the plan worked perfectly. And we kind of just hard counter them on each and every one of those maps, and individually we play really well too, and we kind of just knocked them out of the park on Cafe, and that was that.
Sometimes teams go on a run because things just work out, right? Easy groups, good matchups in playoffs. They catch good teams on a bad day. Whatever it may be. That wasn't what they achieved here. Every team Fnatic competed against was already a world champion or would go on to hoist the hammer at Invite or win a major in the future. There wasn't a single moment where they caught a break, and yet they stood 10 toes down and showed a world who doubted them who they really were. But it wasn't easy. We talked about the struggles going into the event that led them to success.
Going into Invite 2020, Fnatic as a team, we went to the London for bootcamp for like 2 or 3 weeks, and during that bootcamp, the first few days we got our asses absolutely handed to us. We got destroyed, and it was incredible because like during practice domestically in Asia Pacific, we almost never lose the scrim, and then we go international, and then it's just like we can't win a single game. So we really had, during those 2 weeks, we really had to sit down and talk to each other about like, okay, what went wrong, what are the enemies doing differently compared to our local region, what can we do, and obviously knowing that we have a really really tough group at Invite, we need to talk about okay, how we're gonna play against those people, the best of the best. And it was a lot of tough conversations and like some might even say arguments, but I think it was really really necessary to get us to the improvement that we need. And I'm glad that I think in the end we ended up with like solutions that all of us were comfortable with. And as a team, obviously the fact that we're able to like argue with each other at the end of the day and still come up with like a solution that everyone was happy with just shows that, you know, everyone is familiar with each other, everyone is comfortable kind of like disagreeing with each other, but also everyone was understands each other well enough to actually eventually come up with a solution. So like yeah, after a lot of talking, we made several adjustments to our strategies, to our roles, and I think towards the end of that bootcamp, it was the results were starting to show. We were still getting wrecked, but we were like drawing maps pretty much consistently. And going into the event, at the event itself, when we practiced, I feel like there was a drastic improvement with how we played, and we were even winning like practices against like better teams. So yeah.
Top 6 in the world. At the time, many hailed it as the greatest upset in Siege's history. And they didn't even win. Expectation is everything, and if you weren't there, you can't really understand it. But I was there, watching the groups online with everyone else, and seeing them on stage in person. It's a feeling that can't be expressed purely with words. I got the chance to watch the impossible, and then it all just fell apart. Fnatic would never find themselves on stage again. The rest of Fnatic's time together would be a brutal experience, spending literal years trying to get it right, but it was never to be. And hearing Mentalist talk about it, we can really get a look into what faith in a team looks like, even if it was doomed to fail.
I think that was objectively a very tough time for the team, because obviously coming back from a tournament where you did so well. You made main stage, and no one was expecting you to. Everyone was experiencing fatigue, and obviously people will have their guard down. People want to relax, and I think the season being cancelled due to COVID and everything that happened leading up to it just really like made people even let their guard down even more. And that was like kind of the beginning of the end, as you could say. One regret that I have to this day is that none of us, and I didn't as well, kind of picked up the team. We needed someone back then to like really put the foot down and say, okay, guys, this is like our work ethic right now. After we come back from invite is unacceptable. We cannot let our guard down like this. We needed someone to say that, but for one reason or another, everyone was too relaxed and no one kind of did that. So going into the next season, I believe like the fact that due to no travel restrictions, none of us in Australia could uh, travel, so they all had to compete on 120 to 150 ping. That made things even worse. So not only are people putting less effort, those little effort that you do put in ended up being overshadowed by like the ping situation. Like even if you're making the right decision, you're doing the right thing, you're still getting punished, not by fully by the fault of your own. So as a result of that, it was kind of like a negative spiral where people are already not putting enough effort, and when they do putting effort, they're getting denied of that effort. So people are becoming like lazier and lazier and just more and more demotivated, I would say is a better word for it. And yeah, that was ended up what happened.
So stage 1 2021, it seems you were replaced with Alfama, but you weren't listed as benched. What happened that season?
During those 2 years, Fnatic tried a lot of different things. They brought in international players. We had multiple role swaps. We have swaps to our structure, swaps, obviously a lot of swaps to strategies. So part of that change was benching me. I was benched. Part of that was to bench me and to try out some other people. And I think they played the season without me. It was a really tough situation because obviously there's the outside factor of like the ping issue and none of us being able to travel, but also like internally there was the issue, like I pointed out earlier, everyone was kind of slowly bleeding away motivation, and everyone was kind of not putting the effort they're supposed to. Dizzle as a coach and the management as well tried their best to like fix the situation, to like find solutions. They even had a psychologist to help us, but at last I think the situation has pushed almost everyone to that breaking point at some point, and like it was people were just not willing to. How do I put this? The communications within the team during that time was poor, and solutions were kind of just being thrown around, and we were just kind of like trying things here and there, and nothing was really working out. So yeah, I think most of the decisions were made by the management itself, the players themselves. We only really had one-to-one talks with the management. We really never talked to one another. So that goes to show just how bad the team environment was at the time. You can't really blame the players for it, but still, like again, I kind of wish that we got the chance to like talk to one another more than we did, and really, maybe we could have figured something out as a team instead of just letting the management do it for us. But eventually, a lot of things were tried, and none of them worked, evidently.
Eventually, Fnatic would finally give up and head to Japan for a fresh start in a new league, taking Mag with them in an attempt to start anew. But that also meant Mentalist had a chance to start fresh again alongside the Invictus roster.
Right. The decision came to me not as a surprise, obviously. Like it has been 2 years. I'm actually surprised that Fnatic kept us for that long. If I'm not mistaken, I think I was invited to Japan with Mag to form like a team with another Japanese team, but obviously I could not go because I was attending school in Singapore, and I still am. So I didn't want to like drop out of school one more time just to travel to Japan for something that has not been working out for the past few years. So when IG gave me the invitation, I was able to play with some old friends. It was very it was obviously a sign of relief because I still get to do like what I like to do, what I have been doing, and hopefully it's like a changing environment so that I can get out of the slump that I was in as a team with Fnatic. So yeah, it was hopeful at the start.
After 2 seasons among old friends, the org would pull out, but they would carry on under the orgless banner of Tyde. A few years before, he was battling it out at the top of the world. Now, Mentalist was playing for free in the middle of a league most don't even recognize as relevant to the world stage. It was a low point if there ever was one, but did he ever consider quitting?
I think during the tenure at IG, it was, to be honest, it was even more demotivating than the period of time on Fnatic. Because on Fnatic, even though things were not working out, at least everyone was uh, still trying to play at least individually to to the best of their abilities, even though their maximum effort might not be as high due to the lack of motivation. But on IG, it was very polarizing. We would have a very fantastic season start where we go like 4-0, and then all of a sudden everything would just go downhill, and then we would lose like 4 more games in a row and not qualify for the major. In a way, after experiencing failure again and again for so many years on Fnatic and IG, it was bringing me to like, I wouldn't say a breaking point, but I was also like bleeding motivation consistently, and obviously being forced to juggle school and the competitive aspect of the past 2-3 years, it was extremely taxing on the mental aspect as well. So obviously the thought of quitting was consistently on my mind, and after getting dropped by IG, um I was ready to quit, to be honest. Like I was ready to just let go of everything and just like focus on one thing at a time. So in this case, I would just finish my school and see what happens next. But I think I had a talk with some of my friends and obviously with my parents, and they convinced me to just keep going for a bit. Just you had this chance to still compete, even though you might not have an organization. So you would just play and see what happens. And that helped me reframe the perspective and was like, okay, if I'm gonna play, I may as well I may as well just have some fun. That's something I have not been really doing for the past few years. It's just to have some fun and not to focus on the results. That's what I did. Obviously, didn't do very well with Tide. And what happened afterwards is that I went August with another team of upcoming prospects, and we competed in the invitational qualifiers. And to me, that period of time is actually when I had the most fun with Siege and with the competitive aspect, because there was no stress, there was no expectations. I just kind of played. And I think during the invitational qualifier with the Oculus team, I was even streaming our calls and streaming our practices, and that was really really fun as well. Being able to interact with like Twitch chat while playing like semi seriously. So yeah, that was some of the most fun I've had. Uh, Even though the results were pretty bad, but yeah.
Often the separation between a success story and someone who didn't quite make it is deciding not to quit just one more time. That's all it takes, folks. I was gonna quit YouTube years ago, then one salty motherfucker I have a lot of respect for told me I was good at it. So I kept going, and now I'm here interviewing my heroes. I didn't quit, he didn't quit, and I hope you don't either, because it might turn out better than you ever could have hoped. Mentalist stuck around for that season with Tyde, and around the corner he would find an offer that would change things.
Bleed was also kind of like a sudden opportunity. History is what like my old teammates on Aerowolf as well as on IG. He ended up quitting and was recruited as I'm not sure what his actual title is in Bleed, but he was interested in picking up an R6 team. He and I have always been pretty close when we're on the team with each other. So he knew that I can be a natural leader, and he thinks that I have proven that with the team that I led during the invitational qualifiers. So we ended up talking and thinking about, okay, what kind of teammates that we can get, and we ended up, after some thought process and like evaluation process, picking up the current team that we had, which was Asvi, Tud, Rips, Hoven, and me. So yeah, as to how he, I don't really remember what happened. I think it was, I don't actually remember like how y'all happened. I think it was after the invite calls. He talked to me about, uh, I think he was suggesting that he has an org. Like we didn't know. I didn't know that he was on the bleed at the time. He was suggesting to me that he had an org willing to back a team, and he was trying to convince me to not quit and form a new team so that we can compete in the next season's Asia Pacific League. So that's what I did. I kind of formed the team, and we were gonna see if we can qualify for the league. Historics, basically, he at some point we kind of figured out that okay, it is bleed, and from then onwards, kind of everything kind of just sped up. We now that we know that we have a decent org backing us, then I was able to make more ambitious decisions, like picking up players that's contract is running out, aka Rips. I think his contract was running out from DireWolves, so we were eventually able to pay the buyout fee and buy him out. So that's how we built a roster out of like all the really good existing players at the time.
With Bleed giving him a new home, the world was looking out for Mentalist. And while they would miss out on Copenhagen, it wouldn't be long before the team would make it to the major in Atlanta. I asked what it was like to be back after so long.
I don't know what to say. It's just good to be back, I guess. Like obviously for me, the biggest thing was that I was used to failure. I was for the past 3-4 years, I failed again and again and again, uh, due to reasons partly of my own and also partly out of my control. So for me, it was just really a sign of relief for me, really, that I was finally able to break through yet again after all this time and all the effort and frustrations that I went through. Honestly, it was like kind of going back home, to be honest, because I was as a competitive player, I was really in the past when I was 18, 19, when I was Aerowolf, when I was with Fnatic, I was kind of used to the uh the stress of tournaments and the stress of like just everyday day-to-day prep that you have to do going to tier 1 events. So after 2-3 years coming back into that, it was really it was a unique feeling. It's like wow, I'm finally back here and I can start doing like what I love to do again, kind of feeling. Yeah.
In Atlanta, Bleed would become an instant fan favorite, and a lot of that was due to the purchase of a stuffed fish. And as someone who was there, I can tell you the local Bass Pro Shop they bought it from sold out when fans arrived and wanted their own. But was it a surprise to be embraced so quickly by the fans?
Honestly, yes, a little bit surprised. So like the funny story with the fish was just that like me and Essie were just like walking around in a mall, and then we saw a big ass fish in the Bass Pro Shops, and it was like, and then we were both thinking to each other, we were both talking to each other. We're like, okay, it's gonna be really funny if you put this fish like behind our monitor so that the cameraman can see it. Like I really wanted to buy it, but Essie said, okay, it's gonna be too embarrassing. But after we checked out, I turned back to him and I said, "Are you sure you wouldn't like want to buy that fish? It would be so funny." And then I managed to convince him to buy it, and then everything else was history. And I'm really glad like we made that purchase, probably one of our best purchases in our lives. So yeah, really glad the fans liked it as well.
They came so close to playing on the main stage, but was that a frustration, or was it just nice to be back?
It was. I think we missed out on main stage against DarkZero by 1 round. It was really close, but to ask, did we deserve it? I would say no, because we were still young as a team. We were still learning a lot about ourselves at the time, and strategically, our strategical depth was really bad. We didn't really have a lot of strategies, and we didn't really have a lot of support staff as well. So every day before our match, like me and my coach back then, Bruce, would have to do analyzations and map bans by ourselves, and it was incredibly difficult and draining. So to me, it was incredible that somehow we made it that far out of like just players' individual skill and whatever strategies that we had. I honestly didn't think that we had what it takes to make it to the main stage at the time. So the fact that we got so close was a pleasant surprise to me. But obviously, there's the regret that if that 1 round had gone differently, then we would have made main stage already. But yeah, nonetheless, like we were happy with what we got.
I wanted to take a moment and step back and look at how the landscape had changed since Mentalist had first entered the scene, as he's witnessed multiple esports organizers run Siege and has a unique perspective to offer. There's been plenty critiques offered from the other regions on the amount of major slots offered to this region, and I asked for his take on whether the system we currently have under Blast has been an improvement.
I can't speak for the other regions. I can only speak for Asia Pacific, but I think Asia Pacific is a pretty good matrix to kind of measure it because it's the most complex region and the region with the most amount of problems. Um, So to me, I I have always been a huge advocate of the old Apac system, where at the end of the season there will be an Asia Pacific LAN, because Asia is such a big region, with so many people speaking different languages. So you cannot just make one big league, but you also cannot make it into like two separate big leagues because the ping wouldn't be too high. The only really logical solution from a competitive perspective would be to break up into very small regions so that they can compete amongst each other on the low ping, and then at the end of it, you select the best teams from those subregions and make them compete on LAN, um, in a fair environment. But obviously, from a monetary economical perspective, that is not really sustainable. It was only done because ESL had a headquarter in Sydney, but obviously Blast couldn't do that. So if I have a choice, I would choose to somehow go back to the APAC LAN system, under the current subregion system that we have. So right now, it was actually, other than the fact that we don't have an APAC LAN at the end of the season, everything else is the same. We have the Korean, Japan, Australia, and Southeast Asia subregion. It's just that every subregion will send one or two teams to the major. But I think that comes at a problem because not every single subregion is equally represented. Back then, every single subregion will send two teams, and then whichever the top two teams will be the one going to the major. But now, even though we have more teams going to the major, weaker teams are going because the stronger regions are not getting as many slots. I'm just being honest here. Southeast Asia and Australia is probably the two strongest regions, but we get one slot each, while Japan and Korea gets two slots. So, like, to me, that's just part of the reason why Asia Pacific right now in the major are seen as so weak, because we're not sending teams that could be the strongest to the major itself.
Back to Bleed, I was curious about the pickup they made before Invite this year in the form of Julio, an Invite winner who brings a wealth of experience to the team. How did they go on to pick up a Brazilian coach, and why?
I think after Atlanta, it was clear that okay, we needed more help. We needed more support staff. And Bruce, he was getting a new job in China, and he was gonna get more busy, so he couldn't help out as much. And for me, obviously, I there's no way I can do school, be a like a strategical coach, and be a player at the same time. That would just be too much for me. So we needed help. So at the time, Julio's team disbanded. So out of all the coaches that we have gotten, he was by far our top choice, and we were fortunate enough to get him. For him, his contribution to the team is just the fact that he's such a mature figure. He has such like a wealth of experience that he was able to come up with strategies, come up with game plans before a game to help us. I think let's just start with the maturity aspect. The Bleed as a team is really young. I think the average age of our players is the lowest. I think there's a graphic of it somewhere. I think maybe Fresh made it before the Manchester Major, but we were the youngest team at the event average. For us, having another mature figure on the team means that we're able to just be more disciplined overall. I think that's something that the young players really lacked nowadays, and also just be more constructive in giving feedback, in improvement, all that stuff. So he helped a lot in that regard, but also his wealth of experience helped us in coming up with just default strategies. That's number one. Number two is that um, he knows what it takes during a tournament to play well. It's actually very different adjusting your strategies and playing during a tournament compared to just like regular league or just doing practice. It requires a whole other skill set, and having someone experienced in that regard like him helping us during a tournament really help put the minds of the players at ease during tournaments, and it helped me in particular to be able to focus on like my individual stuff and worry not as much about the team's general strategies, and just let him handle like the day-to-day adjustments in strategies, the counters, the counter strats, the map bans and stuff like that.
So going into Invite 2024, it looked like Bleed had everything they needed to be successful. They had someone who had been there, done that in Mentalist, an up-and-coming superstar fragger in Reaps, a legend behind them in Julio, and they had played on LAN together, proving there was no reason to be nervous. I really thought I was going to see them on the stage, but after asking about the event, I realized I may have underestimated the mountain that they did climb.
Going into Invite, I think our expectation of ourselves didn't really change that much. Obviously we were once again placed in like a tough group at Invite. I think it was Liquid, W7M, and M80. It was like considered the group of death at the time. So to us, our initial goal was to just make it out of the groups. And having to play against like W7M first. Oh, I think there's another team on the group. It was an incredibly hard group. And for us, our initial goal was just to make it out of the groups. And honestly, it took us all we had at the time to just make it out of the groups. Because just to remind, Julio wasn't with us for that long, coming to Invite. He was just with us for like just over a month. So we were not able to do that much with him, unfortunately. But what we did do, we were just fully focused on getting out of the group. So we were very focused on dealing with the 5 teams, the 4 teams that were in our group, and how we're gonna play against them. They're from different regions, they have different play styles. So to deal with them, we ended up like learning a lot about ourselves, about how we want to play. So yeah. So going to Invite, we were just fully focused on the game ahead of us, just to try to crawl our way out of the groups. And I think like in that regard, we kind of achieved our goal. We ended up making out of the group, sort of winning the series against Liquid and M80, and taking one map away from W7M, the eventual Invite winners, as well as I think almost winning against VP as well. So to us, like we were pretty happy for that result as a team. But obviously, going to playoffs is a whole nother story. Um, we beat I think Loss, who we had lost to previously in Atlanta, but then we got knocked out by SSG next, I believe. So yeah, I wouldn't say that we did bad during the event. I think with the preparation that we had, with the situation that we were in, we did pretty well. But obviously, we could have done better. But yeah, like we ended up in the lower bracket of the playoff stage, so we only had one chance, like to lose. We didn't have a second chance. So the fact that, yeah, on the day itself we played, like I think me and Third played really bad against SSG. Just an unfortunate outcome. It's just what happens in tournaments. Sometimes you're gonna have a bad day, and that was one of those days, and we didn't have a second chance, and we ended up losing out. But overall, I think as a team we were pretty happy, and pretty it was a pretty promising showcase of the team, like for our first event together with Julio.
Following the loss of Aspie to military service, the team would look a little bit different, bringing in some international talent in the form of Leader. But what made him the right choice for Bleed?
As a team, we had a really positive impression of him during Atlanta, because he was like a mercenary sub for GK. And from what we heard of him, both at the venue itself as well as what other people have talked about him, he was the kind of person that we really needed on the team, which was the kind of person who can take charge, who can IGL when needed, and it's a very smart player who might not be as aggressive, but he's able to like play the support role really well, and kind of be another like a backbone that the team can fall back and rely on. So that's what we kind of looked within him. Um, as a team, like we already have really aggressive, selfish players like Ribs, like Turd. So we didn't really need another one of those young gunners. That's just gonna be a 50-50 whether he just dies, or he's just gonna get you the kill. We didn't need someone like that. We already have Ribs, we already have Turd, we already have Hoven. So we were really looking for another consistent player that's able to lead the team, that's able to IGL with me, to rein the team back when needed, but also to give the team the push that they need when they need it. So yeah, it was just like a added maturity factor to the team, and an added experience as well that someone like Leader has.
I was curious what the support had been like at the org level, since it really seems like these international pickups show that Bleed are in it for the long haul.
Playing with Bleed it's pretty nice, because they have a lot of resources as an org. They also provided us with a lot of resources, like team house that we can use during boot camps and during season. That's I think the biggest thing. And they're also like, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing an org can give to players like us. It's just the environment, and for everyone to be together and to compete together. And that's the biggest thing. And a lot of orgs just cannot do that. So for that, I'm grateful for Bleed, and yeah. a lot of orgs in Southeast Asia also cannot really provide the players with anything. So I'm really glad that we are fortunate enough to have an org that could at least give us the resources that we need so that we can improve and compete and try to like add value to our roster consistently.
They're heading into the future looking stronger than ever. I think this is the best Bleed has ever looked, and it seems as though the team shares the sentiment.
Well, I would say so. Yeah, I hope so because we only ever made one roster change and we added Lender, so it was technically still an upgrade. So I better hope that it's an upgrade. But yeah, hopefully we'll just slowly become stronger and stronger over tournaments. I think the past 3 tournaments we have stopped short at like top 10. We have never really made main stage. So honestly, going to Esports World Cup as well as the next major, we'll just really look to improve our placements and most importantly, even if our placement does not improve, as long as a team we feel like um our potential and our actual gameplay is improving, then I'm happy. Like the things that is the the winning is gonna come eventually, as long as we can keep improving. And I think that's really hard to come by in Asia Pacific these days. So I'm really glad that we can at least have the opportunity to keep on improving ourselves.
I rarely get the chance to ask someone, but I plan on making a better habit of it, as I was curious where the name MentalistC came from.
Okay, this is like kind of weird because obviously, okay, I'm from China. So when I came to Singapore, my dad was like, okay, you need an English name. And I was like, okay, like, what do you mean by that? And he said, okay, we're going to call you Jane. But my mom was like, isn't that a girl's name? And I didn't know anything at the time. I just went with it. And then, okay, years passed, and then I watched this TV show called The Mentalist. And the main character in that TV show, his name is Patrick Jane. So I was like, wow, there's another like parents stupid enough to call their son by a girl's name. So I was like, wow, okay, that must be mean something, right? So I was like, okay, I'll just call myself Mentalist in game then, because like we share the same stupid last name. So yeah, that's how how it came, and that was it. As for the C behind my name, it doesn't really mean anything. I think it was just like at the time I was watching a lot of CS, and there's a lot of players that has like a random character, or at least I thought behind the name, like Kenny S, Chris J, and it was not until like much later that I found out that was actually part of their real name. Kenny S, like the S, yeah. I just added C because I thought it looked nice, so that's how my in-game name MentalistC came from. And yeah.
I'll be linking his socials down below, but I'll let him tell you where to follow him.
Right, you can follow me on Twitter, MentalistC, as well as Twitch. I don't stream much nowadays, but I'll look to change that in the upcoming days. But yeah, I'm the most active on Twitter. I like to shit post there a lot, so make sure to follow me if you like the sound of my voice and the content that I make. But yeah, thank you.
And as always, I'll let him say his own goodbyes to his fans around the world.
It has been a tough journey for me and for me for the past like 5-6 years, and for Bleed for the past a year and a half. But if you're a consistent supporter of us, I thank you, and I hope that in the future you can still be part of our journey and still consistently support us.
Success is often found in the person who says, I'll keep trying. I get it. We live in a world where you're either the best or you don't matter. You're either first or last. It's one thing to hold yourself to that standard, and many champions do, but I've never really understood the concept of making light of those who have done more than you did. Probably more than you ever could. Success can be a wonderful inspiration, but you get to choose how to define it. I've been trying to find a way to discuss his career with the same gusto in which I've talked about champions like Leon and Gunnar and Fabian, because it means just as much to me. Mentalist is one of my heroes. He's one of the players I've always looked up to, one of the people I've always cared about. I'm a fan. I doubt myself all the fucking time in all aspects of my life, and it's stories like his that inspire me to keep going. Because it's easy to look for inspiration from the story of the guy who tried one more time and finally won it all, the one who finally stood atop the mountaintop, the one who grabbed the brass ring. But it means so much more to me to look at the guy who's still trying to win, because so am I. I've found success, I've had wins, every person listening to this is a victory for me, but I'm miles from where I want to be. If Mentalist can keep trying, then so can I. And I need him to, because Siege wouldn't be the same without him. Siege wouldn't be Siege without stories like Fnatic beating G2. It wouldn't be the same without the underdogs, and without that damn fish. I try to make these videos all about the person I'm interviewing. They're the ones who matter, they're the ones who are giving me their time, and they're the ones who deserve the spotlight. But today, I also want to make it about you too. There's someone out there who thinks they aren't good enough. There's someone out there who thinks they should just quit. There's someone out there who's considering giving up on their dreams, and I'm here to tell you not to. Everyone has something amazing about them. Maybe it's big, maybe it's little. You don't have to cure cancer or hold a trophy to be special. Tupac once said,
I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world, and that's our job.
and I'm trying to tell you that it's enough to be the spark. You never know who you're going to inspire along the way. MentalistC continues to inspire me, and that's why I had him on. No pitch today, just a thank you for listening, and a request. I would love to hear who inspires you for reasons big or small. That's it. This is Purple signing off. Have a wonderful night, and always remember to smile. Thanks, guys.
Esports is a career path that is like really hard to make a go and get into. That you can hear like maybe 1 or 2 success stories, but what you don't hear and what you don't see is all those hundreds that failed. And for me, it was never something that I really tried to get into. It was just something that happened, and I'm really grateful for it.